Last week, I told you session five would be the most advanced, and I meant it. But what I should have said is that this is one that will make everything else matter. So you've spent 4 weeks building the front of the relationship. We covered the qualification, the fact finder, the onboarding, the check-in cadence. And today is kind of the back of it, the moments that clients actually remember. So if a client turns 59 and a half, a client sells a business, a client has a baby, a grandchild, these are not just data collection moments. They're those moments that will define whether they stay, whether they refer, and whether they ever think of you as more than someone who just manages their money. So today we're going to build the system that makes sure you're ready for not every single life event that could happen, but a handful of them, and at least give you the muscle memory and the practice to go ahead and create future prompts for other life events that you think of, and definitely enhance the ones that I'm going to share. And at the end, you take a quiz, you earn a credential. So let's get started. So before I show you what's in the guide, I want to know what's most relevant to your book right now. So I'm going to go ahead and drop a poll in the chat. It is going to ask you, which of these milestone ages are you dealing with the most? So you can only choose one, and I will demonstrate that one to begin. If we have extra time, I will definitely hit on the other ones as well. And it looks like age 62 to 70 milestone is coming up with the lead. So we'll go ahead and cover that one. And I'll go ahead and share my screen so that way we can jump right into the guide. And you should be able to see our AI prompt guide, just a review on how to use this. If you go toward the middle of the page, there is going to be an accordion that is going to break out the different life data gathering phases. And we are right here at the very last session, session five, beyond onboarding. And you can find this link also in your Zoom panel underneath resources, but I will also paste this into the chat right now. And we picked the 62 to 70 milestone. So this is the one that we're going to build in today's session. And just as a best practice, we do have that copy prompt button, but we found that it is better to highlight the text and copy it. So feel free to do that. And thank you so much for voting. So remember, when we want to build out a new engagement using AI, you just want to go to the paper icon in PreciseFP and go to the form library. Or no, sorry, we go to my templates. So go to the paper icon and go to my templates. And if you go to my templates, here you will find in the top right hand corner a plus sign, and you could choose generate using AI and paste that prompt in. So if you go to the paper icon, you'll go to My Templates, and then you could click on that plus sign in the top right-hand corner and paste that prompt in from our client data lifecycle guide. And as soon as you do that, we'll give that some time to go ahead and build. But just a heads up, you might find that the AI builds this all at once as it kind of slides through all of those prompts to create, or all of those building phases to create your engagement. But another best practice that you might find works even better is to build it page by page. And what I mean by that is we might create an engagement with just this welcome page text and this right here at the very top, and then have that be created very quickly, very easily. And then we might choose to copy this middle chunk here and paste this in using the generate page button. I find that that's helpful as well, especially if your prompts are getting really long and you're adding help text and you're adding drop downs and yes or no's. It sometimes the platform does better if you work in those digestible chunks. So just remember that. But here we just have, congratulations on this milestone. We have a quick question and just how we've learned in all of the sessions, you do want to dedicate some front end work to kind of customize from here. Maybe you want to customize for this individual person. Maybe you want to include their age. Maybe you want to include their age range or just a general synopsis of why you're reaching out and why this age is an important age to talk about some things. You still want to go in and customize it beyond what you see in that initial prompt. But if we go to the retirement questions, there are the questions that were generated using the prompt. And a few things that I want to point out here before this ever goes to a single client. I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. So the prompt gives you the form, and these 3 questions are going to tell you whether it's ready to send. So the first question I want you to ask yourself is, do I already know the answer? So assuming in this case, we already know this client, we've been working with them for many years, we might already know some of the questions that are being asked here. So you might already know what the current age that they're thinking to claim Social Security. You might already know their current Medicare status. So that's the first question I want you to ask yourself. If you do already know the answer to the question, I would suggest you either pre-fill it or you cut it out altogether. So do not make a client type in what you already have. That is not a form. That is a signal that you're not paying attention. So just make sure you dedicate some front end work here to think about, do I already know the answer to this question? And if yes, pre-fill it or delete it. The second thing I want you to ask yourself is this a current client or a prospect? Because I personally think this is a great lead magnet type engagement as well. You could put this on your website. You could put it on your LinkedIn post that you're addressing this age group in. But I think it's a great send as is if it's a prospect type situation because you've never had those answers from them, and you could put it wherever you see fit. But like I said, if it's a current client, it should look like you already know them. So pre-fill what you have and remove what's redundant. Only ask what has changed, or if you just want to double check on their answers and even just get it in writing instead of just verbally sharing that stuff in a meeting. And the third question, does every field earn its place? So if a client might wonder why you're asking, add help text. So I don't know if you remember, it was in our third session, we created that suitability form. And man, I love that form because it was just jam-packed with help text, which was, what are your liquidity needs? And the help text would say, this is money that you might need in the next 3 to 6 months or whatever kind of clarification you can add to that question. So that way it'll eliminate questions coming to your office or your email as they're completing it. So just know adding in something as simple like life milestones often change your coverage needs is something that will help them when they are filling that out. And I suggest for you to try that out. Let's say I do want to add that sentence there of life milestones often change your coverage needs into one of the boxes. It is one of the most easiest things to do using AI. You would just click on the box that you want that text to go to, click on that update with AI button, paste in what you want or type in what you want. and say, add this help text. And update that element, and it'll go ahead and add in that quick sentence on the bottom of that question. So, it might not be super applicable in that question that we're asking, but just know you have that AI power to just look at a question, say, this question's not perfect. I want it to be written this way, or I want to add this, or I want it to be a drop down. And you can type that into the AI feature and it will create that for you. So also something that we've covered in these sessions is the visibility framework. And I love the visibility aspect of PreciseFP because why ask somebody a question if it doesn't apply? We don't need to have a line item here if it doesn't apply. So, I'll show this in the future form. We'll run through this in the next form that we'll go ahead and run. But just know using AI, you can turn on that conditional visibility where maybe you have a question here before, how would you prefer to follow up? Maybe you had a question that says, would you like an advisor to follow up with you? Then you can make this question visible if they say yes. So just hang on to that. We'll cover that in just a moment. All right, let me look at the questions very quickly. Rebecca is asking which webinar focuses on customizing for each individual. Rebecca, that one was very heavily covered in session 1. If you want to check out that recording, we were able to take specific details about a client from our CRM and insert that into the welcome text and kind of adjust it and use AI to do that hyper personalization. So that would be session 1. Lance says, can we create corresponding fields in the data set to use this as an ongoing client record? Is there an AI way to help create the data set to match the form fields? Lance, not as the system exists today, but that was feedback that was previously shared in sessions. And I did give that to our development team, and they are doing some assessing and testing to see if we can implement AI into the data set as well. But it is a great idea to, in the meantime, create those as fields in the data set, especially if you want to sync it over into your integrations. Sarah's asking, by customizing, are we creating new templates for each engagement in order to keep it specific to the client? And yes, Sarah, that is, what you're going to have to deal with as you use AI for that hyper personalization. If you're going to personalize a form for one specific person, you're going to have to create copies of that form and also personalize it for the next person. So if you're sending out this 62 to 70 age engagement to 10 people and you are hyper personalizing it for each person, you would have this engagement 10 times. Oh, yes. Great, great questions. And Rebecca, I will paste in what I put in, and I just put in the help text that I added. But if I choose update using AI, there is a button here that says previous requests. I can choose that again and copy that exactly for you and put that in the chat as well. And um, let me send that to everyone. All right, there you go. That is the text I put. Perfect. So from here, I just demonstrated one age milestone, but there are other age milestones in there for you to refer to. And definitely, adapt it and adjust it. I'm sure as I present this, some of your creative juices are flowing where you're like, it would be nice to ask this, or what if we followed up with that? Definitely note that down and build that using AI as well. And if we go back to the guide here, just want to point out some things like do not change the welcome copy, use the exact label text as written I love including this one. Do not include financial advice or projections. So all of the things I just read right now are guardrails. So it is a general principle when using AI is to use guardrails to make sure that it doesn't go rogue on you. So you might consider doing things like that in your prompt as well, and definitely use ChatGPT or Claude to help you build out these prompts. But putting in those guardrails will really help with that. All right, great. So next, let's pivot from milestones to life events. So there is a window after a major life event where a client is more open to guidance than at any other point in the relationship, and it does not last long. So if you show up in the moment with a relevant, personalized form that's not just doing data collection, that's demonstrating that you're paying attention to their lives, not just their portfolios. And we've seen tons of data that proves that's what people want in that relationship. And it's a form that, might get referenced at their next dinner party. And if you we have some research too that I'll share from a blog that we recently published that only 40% of pre-retirees feel prepared for major financial transitions. So half of all people facing a major life event cite a lack of resources as a barrier. So if you show up organized and ready, it's not just helpful, it's really going to make that transition feel more manageable. So I'm scrolling down here to our event-based collection of prompts here. And what you're going to find in this area is going to be things like a new baby, a marriage, a divorce, a job change, inheritance, a business sale, a health event. So here is a nice starting point of some life event prompts that you might consider using. And you could just, take the reins from here and to continue to create other ones that you see fit, and even, sit down with your team and think about the things that have happened, or even mine your CRM or your PreciseFP platforms or for some of the events that have happened, and just in anticipation of those things happening, create prompts and forms for them. And it really raises the question to me about the real practice management question on how do you actually find out about these life events in time? And I know everyone here knows the saying, if it's not in your CRM, it didn't happen. So that CRM discipline is definitely a foundation. If you go and log every life event, the moment a client mentions it in a meeting, a call, an email, if you're consistent there, then the system is going to work for you guys to send a form to touch point on that data moment. The check-in forms we covered in last session, session 4, we talked about a check-in cadence. And that's where people might mention things like this, that, they're expecting another child. They have a child who's graduating high school. They might mention they're looking to move soon or whatever it is. You can use those check-in forms as your passive net. So that way it'll catch anything that the CRM missed, and that question alone recovers more events than, you might realize. And I always suggest too, social media is a fair game. LinkedIn is going to surface job changes, promotions, business sales in real time. If you're Facebook or Instagram friends with their clients, I'm sure you'll see baby announcements, marriages, moves. So the etiquette's never to say, hey, I saw this on Instagram. Instead, you might want to say, I wanted to check in. Is there anything new in your world that we should be talking about? And then let them tell you, even if you already know. And then that form feels more attentive than surveillance. And the honest reality, we just might be reacting to these. So if they mention it, someone logs it, a form might go out later. So the 24-hour window is the goal, but whether you hit it or not just depends on, that specific person and situation. All right, so just to cover some of these date of birth items, you'll notice this is just doing an angle here where it's asking the child's name, their date of birth. Same thing here. If you know this information, you know they had their baby last week or last month or whatever, put that in already. Don't have them fill it out again. And I always, when I was making this, I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity to send them a nice personalized baby gift. As soon as you get that information returned with those final details, you can send over, a personalized blanket with all that information and kind of take that relationship further. And some help text you might consider adding, a 529. Maybe they don't know that the 529 can go from child to child, or it can go to a Roth IRA after a certain age. So adding that kind of help text might help for the context. And even, if you're asking about their insurance, adding help text there of having a new dependent is one of the most common triggers for reviewing coverage. That can help make sure that nothing is overlooked. So feel free to use that one. The marriage one, I thought this one was great, especially because there is we have a source from National Library of Medicine that finances are the primary source of conflict in 40% of long-term relationships. And financial stress makes couples less likely to have that important conversation, um, per Cornell University research. So this marriage form can create that structure for the conversation that stress is preventing. And something else that I thought about when I was building this form was um, something that this form can surface that the meeting never will is decisions one spouse might have made privately. So whether they want to combine their resources, whether they want to have separate accounts, whether there are concerns they haven't voiced yet. A client answering a form alone will tell you things that they won't say in front of their partner and their advisor at the same time. So it's not a small thing. That is the difference between walking into a meeting informed and walking in blind. So the form gives you that conversation before that confrontation, just saying. So feel free to use that if you find it valuable. But the one I'm thinking about implementing today as an example is the job change. So I'll go ahead and highlight that and copy it. And I'll jump back to PreciseFP and go to templates on the left, click on my templates at the top, and then I'll click on the plus sign and choose generate using AI, paste that prompt in and let that toggle through those tasks in order to create that form. And let me just see here. Derek is asking to keep our templates to a manageable number. If we delete templates, will it delete the engagement for clients who have received those in the past? Great question, Derek. It will not delete what's gone out to a client. So as soon as you create this template, you send it to the client, you can delete it because it already made a copy and sent it. It won't delete that one that was sent. It'll only delete it from the library. But great question. Ooh, I like this next question. So it says, how can we build a single template for all these life events that we can just check the relevant boxes to include in the engagement, like the dynamic financial fact finder? Great question. I think that's a great idea. You would just want to play around with the prompt to make sure that those boxes appear as check boxes. So the prompt would want to have all of these life events listed in a checkbox. And then in the prompt, you would consider adding, if they check off the box for job change, then I want it to have conditional visibility and have this page appear with these questions. And to follow up today's session, I can play around with that and see what I can come up with and share that back with you if you find that to be helpful. All right, so here we have the job change form that it created using that prompt. And I'm going to harp on it again. Same thing here. You want to go ahead and take a moment, customize this and brand it and double check AI's work. This just says, thanks for the update, client. We have a few questions to make sure nothing falls through the cracks with your job change. Pretty general, but you might choose to add more. Now, the questions that it created, do you have a retirement account with your prior employer to address? Have you reviewed your new employer retirement plan? Does your new role include equity? Has your income changed significantly? I think those are outstanding questions to ask in a job change. That might be things that they've never even thought about sharing, but how important are these questions for you and your team to know about? So really quickly, the AI generated this form for you. You just want to double check its work and make sure that it's perfect. Go through those 3 steps that I mentioned before to make sure that it is client ready, and then you can go from there. So I'll go ahead and preview this out, and this is what it would look like when it's going to the client. So you'll notice it's just yes or no questions, and then what would you prefer as a next step? And the options say schedule a call, send more information, or no action needed, which might very well be the case as well. And just as a little tip here, if you don't like those yes and no to be so spread out, consider changing these boxes to be a little bit shorter or smaller, and it'll condense those responses together a little bit more. So just some visual changes too, if you think that would help. All right, Melissa's asking, can you demonstrate how to make something conditionally visible? Yes, let's go ahead and jump into that. Let's go to my templates and let me choose a form here. Let me see what this one is. Trying to find a good example here. Okay, I think this one is a good example because you'll notice this question here says, are there income or cash flow changes you would like to discuss? And the answer is yes or no. The next question says, what would you prefer as a next step? Now, if I answered no to wanting to discuss, then in my opinion, there's no reason for me to choose that next question of what would I prefer as a next step. So what I would suggest here is to add in that conditional visibility to that question. So that way it will only appear if they answered yes to wanting to discuss those changes. So what I would do here is add in using AI that conditional visibility. So if you click on this box here that you only want to appear if the answer is yes, click on that box and choose update with AI. And just because my memory is not the best, I'm going to double click on this box and just copy the question, because what I'm putting in the AI is going to say, hey, only have this box appear if this question is yes. So I'm just going to copy that preemptively, and I'm going to go back to this box, choose update with AI, and I'm going to type in what I want. So change this box to only be visible if this question is answered yes. And we'll paste that question in. And I could copy this and paste this into the chat as well. All right, and we'll update this element. And what that's going to do is it's going to, on the element level, generate using AI. So I'm asking it to have that visibility change, and you'll notice that I icon appeared. So let's test this out just to double check the work of the AI. If I start this form, here's those yes or no questions. Are there income or cash flow changes you would like to discuss? Here is the drum roll. If we choose yes, that question appeared. So it looks like the AI did generate it successfully, and you would want to make these assessments to your form too. If they chose no, there's no reason for them to, select what the next step is. But if they choose yes, what would you prefer as a next step is a nice touch. Now they can go ahead and choose to schedule a call or just have more information sent to them. So great question. Hopefully that was clear. Oh, yes. Tara's asking, can you do another quick run through on when you need to add help text and how it looks? Yes, let's see if this form has a good example. Would you like help creating a full account? Okay, so this one is actually the divorce one. Have beneficiary designations been updated? Would you like help creating a full account and asset inventory? So maybe we want to add help text here that says, in the case of a separation and assets needing to be shared legally, this document can help. So what we're saying here is this, I jumped into the divorce form. I didn't create it live, but I have it on my system already. And I'm going to say add help text. And I just typed in a brief sentence here. In case of a separation and assets needing to be shared legally, this document can help. So if I update this element, what it'll do is it'll create that help desk right, or that help text right below that question. And I always think help text can help in any situation, just especially in these stressful moments where they might be like, why in the world are they asking if I want an asset inventory? Adding in a brief help text there of, in the case of a separation and assets needing to be shared legally, this document can help. So something like that. And I didn't have to, double click in here, add it in manually. Instead, I just told AI what I wanted and it created it for me. So you might consider doing that as well. But great question. So we always complement every session with a report that we think would complement this session well. So let's go ahead and look at our prompt guide. We're going to go to the bottom here where it has our sample prompts for the report builder. And I thought this milestone outreach one would be nice. It says create a report of prospects and clients. Show the contact's first name, last name, date of birth, and current age. Now, you might want to take it beyond this data and maybe you want to have their email address. Maybe you want to have their address, whatever else you want included, you can edit and adjust this prompt. But I just want to show that within the system, there is a report AI feature. So if you go to the templates icon, go to the My Templates tab, we can click on that plus sign in the top right-hand corner and choose generate using AI as well. And just in plain text, tell our AI friend what we want to see. We want to see a report of prospects and clients with this data, and it'll go ahead and generate that for us. So the idea here is just to get really specific on what you want to see. And I've mentioned this before. To me, a report is just like an advanced search. So maybe you want to cast a net over something specific in your database. This AI report builder will be very helpful for you. And you could continue to add columns here, even using AI, you can continue to add columns. But just to preview this out and generate that report, we will be able to see that it's going to take all of our clients and prospects and put them into a list here with their date of birth and their age. So I do have some bad data in there. I might consider cleaning up or reaching out to clients to gather their additional information. But I thought this would be a nice complementary report to couple with the information that we're covering today, where maybe you just want to print off all your clients, all their ages. You could put this in Excel, make it into a graph, a circle pie chart, whatever you need. And then you could kind of make strategic decisions from there on what forms you would need, when you want to send them, how you want to send them, all of those kinds of decisions. Great. So those are the things that I wanted to cover in today's session. Definitely check out this AI prompt guide for additional suggestions on life events and milestones. You'll notice there's even a sample email in here because that initial email that's sent out is just saying, hello client, please fill out this engagement. You might want to customize that a little bit further, especially when you're talking about super sensitive things like divorce or new baby. Customize that email message, be very clear, communicative, congratulatory, sympathetic, whatever it is in that email, but you could consider pulling that in, and AI will also help you generate those emails and those periodic reminders as well. And we showed that in previous sessions. Stephanie says, for advisors who are not currently using the software but would probably find it useful, is there a way for them to do a free trial? Yes. If you go to PreciseFP.com, there is a button in the top right-hand corner that says sign up, and there is a free 14-day trial available for you to use as well. Rebecca says, on conditional questions, can you add a link for clients to schedule? And is it a good practice? I haven't tested it out of whether the AI would generate that for you. But let me jump into this job change questionnaire and I'll show you what you can do. If you click on that box where you just asked what they prefer as a next step, you would consider adding in another box below that and double clicking it. And we could test this using AI too, but if you just double click it and choose the calendar option, the calendar app, you would just choose which calendar you're using. I know I have G reminders, and you could put in your G reminders link for, maybe you have 15 minutes, maybe you have 30 minutes, an hour, whatever, you would put that specific link. And then, yes, there's your calendar. And then you could have this conditionally appear if they say they want to schedule a call. So that way, with that one link, you're asking them those life event questions. You're asking them if they prefer a next step. And if their next step is a call, then they're actually booking their date and time for that call, which I think is amazing way to use the system. Oh, great question. Tara's asking, when selecting the teardrop icon for customization, what does the primary, secondary, and tertiary affect for colors and text? So if you click on that water drop icon, this is where all of your branding is going to take place. And the different colors correspond to different areas in the system. So for primary, though, that will be the bars that you see. So if we preview this out, you'll notice there are like this bar here that says start, and it'll have this progress bar that appears, and it'll have that title at the top. That is where that is pooling. And then the secondary and uh, third one here, let's change it to a whole different color just so we can see it a lot easier. But, oh, okay, so it looks like the third text is the text color is changing the question color, where the second one is changing the question responses. We have one other question that says, when is the due date for taking the quiz? So I think that is a great segue here. We can jump into the quiz, talking about the quiz for today's session, and I'll stop sharing here. So I'll go ahead and throw out another poll here and we can run through this together. So what you're seeing now may or may not be the actual quiz that will happen for completing this series and earning your certification. So let's just jump through and read these questions together. So the first question says, what does PreciseFP's AI template builder allow you to do? The first option says automatically send emails to client on your behalf, generate branded client facing forms in seconds using plain language prompts, connect your CRM, or schedule client meetings. And the answer is the second one, generate branded client facing forms in seconds using plain language prompts. Next question says, which PreciseFP feature allows you to turn a form into a shareable link that can be embedded on your website? So we covered this in the first couple sessions. This is the web publisher. So the web publisher feature in PreciseFP will allow you to take one of those forms and it'll either generate a link for you or it will create some code for you and you could use it on your website or your email signature, your broadcast emails, things like that. Next question says, what is the primary benefit of PreciseFP's pre-fill feature? And you'll notice this question comes up and worded a little bit differently later on, but the whole benefit of PreciseFP's pre-fill feature is to make sure that clients never have to re-enter information they have already provided. So, you don't want to have those awkward moments where they already told you, their child's date of birth and you're asking it again. It's very much breaks that momentum of a good experience. So that's what PreciseFP is going to do, is make sure you do not ask them for things that you already know. At which stage of the client life cycle is it most appropriate to display your fees? Now, this is just something that we talked about in this series, where when we were making the lead qualification form, we put our fees in there. So the answer for this series is stage 0, lead qualification. Now, that's not the end all be all answer. There's definitely reasons and best practices to put it elsewhere or not put it at all. But in our series, we talked about, using that respectful friction where you might consider putting your fees in that lead qualifier form. So that way you don't waste your time in a meeting if it's not a good fit, and they're fully aware of your fees and agree to them before moving forward. What does PreciseFP's data quality score measure? So data quality score is one of my favorite features, and it is going to give you the completeness of a client profile relative to know your client requirements. So it's going to coordinate with those know your client requirements and give you a qualitative or quantitative score on how close you are to meeting those requirements. And that's what that data score quality does. Which of the following is a correct use of the AI report builder? For us, we were building a report that lists all clients with a data quality score below 80. So, knowing that PreciseFP is accumulating that client profile data and providing you with a score, we then created a report to see all of the contacts that are below 80, and that would be a great use of that report. What is recommended timing for sending an annual review prep form? We said 2 to 3 weeks, just so it gives your clients time to fill that out. So 2 to 3 weeks before the scheduled meeting. Which of the following can be embedded directly into a PreciseFP annual review prep form? This is not just the annual review prep form as we just showed in the job change form. You can do this in any form, but when we were building out that annual review prep form, we embedded our calendar link and the risk tolerance questionnaire. And that was so they get one link to update their information, double check anything's missing or incorrect. They would retake their risk tolerance assessment to see if their comfort with risk has changed over the year, and then they would schedule that time and date to come into the office. What is the best description of a conditional field in PreciseFP? The answer is a field that only appears based on how a client answers a previous question. Which of the following is an example of an age-based milestone form? The correct answer is a form triggered when a client turns 72 to guide RMD and QCD planning. So that is available in your prompt guide, and you would just want to complement this process with your CRM, maybe pull up your RMD report in your CRM and send over a form asking about their RMDs. And that prompt is, can get more in depth. Maybe you want to ask whether they want quarterly, annually, if they want it, if it's manual or if it's automatic. You could continue to enhance that prompt for that age-based milestone form. What does the AI report builder milestone outreach prompt help the firm do? So it would be generate a list of all clients reaching key ages. And you can choose to run that annually, quarterly, biannually, whatever works best. Which of the following best describes the purpose of an event-based form? So a form that collects only the information relevant to a specific life event, such as a marriage or inheritance. According to the client data lifecycle, which of the following is an advisor blind spot that PreciseFP helps addresses? And this is the one that I was talking about that will be asked again, but in a different way. And the answer is still asking clients for information they have already provided. So you always want to be building on the last interaction, and you're doing that by pre-filling things and even removing them altogether if you already know the answer. What is the recommended approach when a client has not completed a form after the initial send? So another one of my favorite features and probably one of the most underutilized features in PreciseFP is called periodic reminders. So if you enable periodic reminders inside of PreciseFP, it'll nudge the client after a set number of days. I love this feature. No one wants to chase adults for their information. So if you enable those periodic reminders, it'll automatically send emails that you can customize every 2 days, 3 days, 9 days, whatever you want, to make sure that they complete that form. Which of the following best describes the role of PreciseFP in a firm's tech stack? So it is an award-winning data gathering platform that collects, verifies, and syncs data across integrated tools. So those are the questions that you will see in the quiz. And I will go ahead and share that quiz link as well, just so you have that to follow up today's session. And the quiz will also share it in an email, so that way you have it to complete there as well. And you do not have a time limit of when it needs to be completed. You can complete it at any time, especially if you want to rewatch some sessions maybe before you take it, but that doesn't have a time limit. And then once you complete your quiz, you will get a certification right to your inbox. So I know Joy is asking, what is the significance of the certification? So it's definitely a nice to have. You can present it to leadership, letting them know that you dedicated the time to go ahead and learn these tools. We really would like to see it on your LinkedIn. Maybe you have collected some badges and certificates on your LinkedIn profile. You can upload the certificate or the badge there, and just general way for us to continue to learn. As you get this certification, we all know, I'm sure everyone knows how fast and quickly AI is changing. So, getting this one is almost making sure that we're all riding the bus together. As AI continues to enhance and things continue to change, we'll continue to build on the skills that we know. So just having the certification will be a great way to continue as we learn the next latest and greatest thing that comes out with AI. So before I let you out, I just wanted to say that this series has been one of my favorites to deliver. The questions you asked, the ideas you brought, the things you build live in these sessions. Let me just say, I've been doing webinars for 12 years now. This is not a typical webinar audience. You guys have been amazing. This is a room full of people who actually care about their clients, and it has been genuinely fun to be here every week. And like I just spieled on a moment ago, AI is moving fast, and we're going to keep building on this. Um, PreciseFP has a number of AI features that we continue to work on, and we will plan on releasing. We'll communicate those as we progress on them. And I think it's a great idea to continue on with these series so that way we can take the latest and greatest and learn that as well. And I want to say one more thing about why this matters to me personally. So the forms we built this week, the new baby form, the divorce form, the milestone check-in, these are all life moments. So if a client just had a baby, they just got married, you can't send a fillable PDF over email for that. So I love how PreciseFP has built um, on what you know how to use. And it's a difference between just showing up and checking a box. So that dedication to tools that are actually working for everyone that you serve, I love about PreciseFP and I love about this room. So one more thing before you go. 5 weeks ago, you showed up to this webinar wanting to learn about AI. Some of you were curious, some of you were skeptical, some of you were probably honestly a little unsure of what you were getting into. And in that time, you've built forms that did not exist before. You learned how to catch a life event before the client brings it up, how to make account opening go right the first time, how to run a check-in cadence that does not require you to carry it manually. So I want you to think about what that actually means. So most advisors spend their entire career doing this by hand, chasing forms, asking the same questions twice, missing milestones because there wasn't a system in place. So you have the system now. Go past the quiz, put the badge on your LinkedIn, and then open the guide and build the next form, because the best client experience you have ever delivered is the one you are about to send.